In 1936, Robert Moore and his wife Clara moved to Tampa from Tacoma, Nebraska with their 3 children. They would later have 2 more children, the youngest of which was named Myron. Myron Moore is my father and the patriarch of a family which now spans 11 spouses, 14 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. This is a look back at some of his stories. On May 24, 1930, Robert and Clara Moore gave birth to Myron Clara Moore. They lived in Ybor City. Robert and Clara had moved to Tampa in 1926 during an economic boom which quickly turned into the Great Depression in 1930. Robert would teach Sunday school every week at Seminole Heights Baptist Church. One day, 5-year-old Myron decided to go to church.
Well, they left me at home, and I with my sister and somebody else, I forgot which, but I was outside playing, and I decided that I wanted to go find my mother, and I figured she'd be at church, because that's where she always was. She was either at church or she was home. And also I went down there, I figured she'd be at a church meeting and all, but I didn't specifically see her, but there was a construction pile of sand, and I was sitting there, so I began to play in that construction pile. When she went back home and didn't know that I was there. And so they sent the Boy Scouts and everybody else out looking for me, trying to see if they couldn't find her. Then finally, I finally woke up and thought, I bet he must be at church. And I was probably, I think maybe 5 years old at that time.
In high school, Myron and his brother Gene decided that they wanted to go to a clinic in New York City to help overcome their stuttering.
And I wasn't hard, anything like that. My father, he took us to Tampa and put us out there on Route 41. And we started hitchhiking. We each had a suitcase. and so somebody picked us up and took us up to Savannah. And it was late in the afternoon. We didn't know we were going to have to find a room or something. We didn't know what was going to happen. But this guy came along in a Cadillac. Didn't have much trouble at that time, but this guy asked us where we were going. We said we were going to New York City. He said, well, that sounds good to me. He said, I'm going to get in the back of the car and I'm going to let you drive. And so we drove all night long and got to New York City the next day.
While they were in New York, Myron got a job washing dishes, and Gene received money from the GI Bill. They stayed in New York until October 20th of 1946, when they received word that their beloved father, Robert, had died.
When we were there, then my father passed away while we were up there. And of course, we hopped on the bus to ride home in order to get to the funeral they were. And then we turned around and took a bus back.
A week after the funeral, Myron and Gene returned to New York City to complete their work at the speech clinic. In 1947, Myron completed the speech clinic and then returned home to be with his mother, allowing him to return to high school. In the spring of 1948, Myron met Betty Jean Cromartie in a glee club at Central High, now Clearwater High School.
That's where I first met her, and I had one class with her, and I think it was bookkeeping. I think it was where I began to notice her, but we were coming back from glee club, from one building to another. And she and a friend asked me what I like to do. I said, well, I can play harps. And they said, well, let's go to Beijing and play some horse. So, I was kind of shy, and also they were the ones that instigated it. But the rest is history.
In his senior year at Central High, Myron played on the football team under Coach Bill Justice.
And of course, I played on the football team and all that part of for my senior year, which we went undefeated that year. One of the alumni, said that he could get me up to the University of Florida. But at that time, I just didn't feel like I was ready for college. Because we went undefeated and everything, and it was my first year playing.
Both Myron and Betty Jean graduated high school in May of 1949. Betty Jean attended St. Petersburg College at the St. Pete campus, as it was the only campus at the time. After graduating with her Associate of Arts degree, she moved to Florida State in May of 1951 to get a degree in education. While Betty Jean was in college at St. Petersburg College and FSU, Myron had many jobs all over Pinellas County. First, he worked at a juice plant in Dunedin making high C. Then, in December of 1949, he worked at the Bellevue Biltmore making salads.
I decided I better be doing something about my commitment to Betty Jean, and also I got her an engagement ring. And I sent it to her while she was still up there at school, and also that she could have it, with her friends, in her sorority group. And I finally had made a commitment.
In May of 1953, Betty Jean returned to Clearwater to live with her mother and teach third grade at South Ward Elementary School. A year later, Myron and Betty Jean were married on July 9th, 1954. After 2 years of marriage, they decided they wanted to travel before having children. In June of 1956, they bought a truck and left for Alaska.
After the third year, we decided we wanted to take off and go on an adventure, because if we didn't do it then, we never would. So I bought a pickup truck, and we built a box in the back of it, and we took off for Alaska.
They lived in Alaska for 6 months. For the first 2 weeks, they lived with friends from home until they could find jobs.
I was able to get a job in a mining camp, a gold mining camp. While I was there, I was a second cook. And Betty Jean waited the tables for the men.
When Betty Jean was 5 months pregnant with their first son, they decided it was time to move back to Florida. On April 27, 1957, Betty Jean gave birth to their first son, Eugene Irwin Moore. In 1957, Myron built his first house for his brother, Eugene.
That's where I got started. We built a duplex that we could live in, and also Uncle Irv. Actually, I built it for him. And then it ended up in James Jr.'s hands. And we built another duplex. And then we built 2 more. We built some elsewhere. And we also built a house at Fairway Estates. And we got into the construction business full time.
While living in that duplex, they brought home their second son, Miles Jeffrey Moore, on September 11, 1958. About a year later, Betty Jean returned to teaching second and third grade at High Point Elementary. Shortly after their third son, Myron Scott Moore, was born in 1961, Myron found a 10-acre tract of land where he built a model house at one end and developed the rest of the property into a mobile home park. The family was living in the house when they brought home their fourth son, Stephen James Moore, in August of 1964. In 1965, Myron sold the mobile home park and the adjoining house, so they began searching for a new place to live.
Well, I bought the land from a disabled vet, and I paid $6,000 an acre for it. There's 4 acres in there.
When Myron bought the land, the city manager refused to give him building permits because he wanted to add the land to the adjoining city park.
I went down and applied, but he just let them sit on the desk. He wouldn't give me permits. And I said, John Robertson had to go down there with me, went before the city commission. And the way it was, they didn't have any good reason for turning me down, on the fact that the city wanted it. But I want to build my own house there. And I remember one of the commissioners said, well, I don't know why Moore wants to build down there in that swamp anyway. And my attorney said, look, we're not here to discover whether he's got his brains. We're here to get a building permit.